This program has been made possible in part by the following sponsors. The Trial Lawyers Association of BC. The Vancouver Courier newspaper. My new book about addictions, All the Way Home, Building Recovery That Works. We record these programs on Wednesdays, so the show is then shown on air on Shaw Community Television Cable 5 times the following week. So the first time you would be able to see this episode is Sunday evening at 7:30, and that would be after, on September the 20th, Recovery Day, Vancouver 2015 had already come and passed because it'll be held in the afternoon of Sunday the 20th at the Queen Elizabeth Plaza. So I guess I should have done this a lot earlier, but it's never too late to say something about the recovery movement. And the best person to talk about that is our guest, Marshall Smith, who's the Director of Corporate Development for Cedars at Cobble Hill, a recovery center on the island, but also with a very strong presence here in the Lower Mainland. Thanks largely to Mr. Smith. Marshall, great to see you.
Good to see you, David. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So recovery, I think the word we're talking about recovery from addictions of all kinds, but what does it mean when you say it, and you talk to people, you're talking to audiences all the time, what does it mean to you? What are you conveying?
Well, David, as you know, there's about, Statistics Canada tells us there's about 4.5 million Canadians who are in recovery from addiction disorders across the country. And thousands more are getting well every year. I mean, This is really showing us that addiction is a highly treatable, highly survivable health problem, and recovery is the solution. Recovery is going on all over the place. Addiction is going on all over the place too, but it's good to know that there's a solution. I'm in personal recovery. My story, is out there all over the place. Yeah. I had a significant problem with alcohol and drugs when I was a bit younger. Yeah. That led to some pretty dark places for me, including the streets and others. But thanks to treatment that we have available in British Columbia, and we do a very good job at that, and thanks to the gift that recovery has given me, my life is great today. Yeah. And that's the way it's going to stay. Yeah, and you really have become one of the true faces of this movement, because it has really finally become a kind of social movement. Not that it didn't exist already. Certainly the phenomenal contribution of 12-step programs to social structure around the world, in my opinion, is one of the greatest social contributions of the 20th century. Clearly. Yeah, but more has happened. So talk about some of the things that are moving this marble up the mountain a bit. Well, I think that a couple of years back, there were a number of people that got together. You were one of them, as I recall, that began to organize the recovery community here in Vancouver. That had a snowball effect, and what we're seeing now really is a national movement towards bringing recovery out of the shadows and into the forefront for many British Columbians and Canadians across the country. People in recovery are gathering together, organizing, meeting with government officials, meeting with all kinds of people to pull this together, and that culminated in 2015. 2015 was a big year for us in recovery. We were called to Ottawa, about 50 of us from across Canada, to participate in the first ever national summit on addiction recovery that was held in this country. And that was several days where addiction experts got together and came up with a very principled document about what recovery looks like and what it is in Canada. And at the end of the day, we were able to reach consensus, which was not an easy task, and produced the national commitment to recovery from the disease of addiction, which was a big step for us.
And I know, Marshall, because of course you know that I was there. We worked together on that. But I know that I and many people from British Columbia went rather cynically, not expecting much of anything to happen. Right. Colleagues of mine, friends of mine, people I don't even get along with, but we all said, "Oh yeah, conference in Ottawa, what the heck," you know. And yet, didn't we all leave feeling, holy smokes, that something really nice has happened here?
Yeah, I think, David, when we have a goal, and that goal is well articulated in terms of, we have this problem with addiction, it's a complex problem, the drug problem, we see it all over the place. There really is no high-level goal that we've set for our communities. We spend a lot of money reducing harm, and we spend a lot of money researching and studying the problem. This was an opportunity for us to articulate what the horizon should look like, and to point the way and say, this is where we're agreed that we need to go. And recovery is just that. We need to start getting people well from the disease of addiction in Canada, and not just maintaining them in a vicious cycle.
One of the things that happened, I wanted to hear more about where we should go, of course, but one of the things that happened that was startling and very wonderful was that David Wilkes, the member of Parliament for Kootenay, slash something, who has been a Conservative member for several years, and a former policeman, an RCMP officer, am I right? Yeah, I think so,
he was RCMP,
did the unheard of, stepped up in Parliament in March, I think, and outed himself as a man in recovery for 27 years.
Right.
And nobody's ever done that.
Right.
And he got a standing O from the entire House.
Right.
Because this is an element that I have to tell you honestly, although I've been acquainted with the subject for so many years, I never thought about the stigma and shame before. I've just been so caught up in the issue of the recovery work that I never thought about, well, there is this stigma. But he was one of the people who bravely stood up and said, hey, this is who I am.
Very much so. I mean, tackling the issue of recovery from addiction has been a significant step forward for this government federally.
Yep.
Very exciting news. In fact, we had Prime Minister Harper at the beginning of the campaign stated, for the first time, I think, that any Prime Minister has ever stated this. If you're in recovery, we want to help you. We want to acknowledge your efforts and make sure you have the support.
And who was there?
It doesn't. For me, this is not a partisan issue. This isn't an issue of partisan politics.
Yes.
Recovery transcends all political lines,
Absolutely.
all socioeconomic classes. This is everywhere going on, and so does recovery. But it's really nice to see our government officials stepping forward and recognizing that recovery is a very real, very attainable and sustainable goal, and that's the goal that we need to be pursuing.
One of the great friends of recovery, and has been for several years, is John Weston, the member for
West Vancouver. That's right.
He was at the first recovery day, and I meant to say in my introduction when I started the program today that Recovery Day Vancouver was a brand new thing in 2012, and today, I don't remember how many cities, 20-some?
20-odd cities across the country.
Across the entire country.
I was just in Victoria this weekend. We had a tremendous time in Victoria.
Yes.
There had to have been 1,000 people there.
That's great.
All in recovery from various forms of addiction, and really showing the community that this is a significant constituency of consequence.
Now, Marshall, there are people who are going to be watching this and going, who are these two screwballs? What are they going on about? Addiction, my nephew Eddie, he's a drunk, he's a drug dealer, he'll never change.
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
Well, I don't really say much to them. At the end of the day, addiction is a healthcare problem. People who have this disease are sick.
Yeah.
It's a relapsing, remitting disease. We get well, we stay well, and That's just the facts. That all of the evidence in the world points to the fact that you can get well from this. And we should be investing in programs that aim to do that.
And you said at the beginning that there are 4.5 million Canadians who are in active recovery.
That's right.
Now, I just read an interesting thing about this issue where someone was saying that in the old days of AA and NA and Cocaine Anonymous and Gambling Anonymous and Overeaters Anonymous and so on, in the old days, nobody spoke about being a recovering addict or alcoholic.
Right, they said recovered. Yeah.
A recovered alcoholic.
Right.
Tell us the difference.
Well, I think at the end, some of it is semantics, and some of it, for those of us who live it, you know, these words are important. I think what's important is that people stop using these substances, that they seek support and get healthy, and that they understand that they can do that, and that they understand that there's no shame in that whatsoever. That is clearly what's important. Look, this is going on in kitchen tables, boardroom tables, suburban homes, all over the place, all across British Columbia. Addiction is not just a downtown east side problem. This is not just a problem that marginalized people experience. This is happening all over the place. And we need to ensure that we, you know, have an environment where people can come forward and get well.
But in a way, the media has not been that helpful. In a way, the media loves to focus on blood and guts.
Sure.
So of course, you know, the downtown east side is you know, DTS is an acronym, and it's everybody recognizes it, and it's all about that big mess.
Right.
But what you're saying is, look, all of that's true, but everywhere in the community there are people struggling with these problems.
Certainly the mess that is the downtown east side, and I have a lot of empathy for the people who are down there. I was one of them for many years, so I have a good understanding of what the issues are down there. But as difficult as those challenges are, the people of the downtown east side are a small percentage of the overall addicted problem in Canada and in British Columbia. And we cannot continue. As important as the work is that is going on in the downtown, we have some very sick people down there that require a very particular type of healthcare intervention.
Which they're not getting.
But that type of intervention that they're getting or supposed to be getting down there is not the way that we need to engage the rest of the community.
Really?
So, well, no. In fact, you know, there are a number of different ways to engage. You know, recovery isn't just about AA. It's not a one-size-fits-all. There are a number of ways people need to be engaged to get healthier, and you know, we're heading towards that.
Governments like to throw money at things. You know, in terms of police, we like to throw blue at the issue, like more police and so on, and we like to throw money at healthcare problems, right? So we throw $1 million a day into the downtown east side to over 100 social service agencies. I don't know that much has changed.
I don't know. You know, what I can tell you is that the nice thing about recovery is that it's predominantly free. It costs very little money. I mean, recovery is about people supporting each other to live a better life and to stay clean and sober. And that is a gift that, for those of us who are in recovery, we give away freely every day. So there are recovery meetings that are available in Vancouver and throughout British Columbia on a daily basis.
All day and evening.
If you're somebody that is struggling with this issue, get yourself to one of those meetings, whether it is AA or NA or Smart Recovery or LifeRing or a number of different models. They're there, and they're free, and they're available to help you.
Okay, on that positive note, we'll take a little breather. A good chance for you to send us a note at davidberner.com, and good opportunity for those lovely people who support us on this program to say hello here on Shaw Community Television Cable 4. We'll be back with our guest, Marshall Smith, right after these messages.
This program has been made possible in part by the following sponsors. The Trial Lawyers Association of BC. The Vancouver Courier newspaper. My new book about addictions, All the Way Home, Building Recovery That Works. People with active addictions are coming out of the closet left, right, and center and saying, hey, look, I got a problem. And that's a good thing because that's the only way that people are going to find help is by stepping forward. Marshall Smith has been at the forefront of that movement called recovery for quite a few years now. He's outspoken and very active and energetic on this, among other issues. So Marshall, take a few minutes and see if you can describe for someone what a recovery process, I know it's different for everyone, but what might a really legitimate recovery process look like for someone?
Well, I think that it's important to define the issue. And you know, we, like any healthcare issue, there's an acute intervention and there's a chronic intervention. Addiction is a chronic disease that we continue to try to bring an acute intervention to. So therein lies some of the problem. Recovery really is what we do to address the chronicity of the problem. It's what we do to stay healthy. So it can be things like attending support meetings, working on your own issues, getting a counselor, exercising, changing your diet, watching your sleep hygiene, improving your spiritual contact with the community. It can be a number of things where you raise your spirits and get healthy from this.
One of the curiosities is that everybody has a different journey. There are similarities, but for example, many people have to delve into terrible childhood trauma, and there's lots of that going around. You know, and there's a direct line between that assault and rape and violence in the home and addiction. Yet other people don't go there at all and are simply very practical minded and say, look, I've messed up my life with a bottle and I just cannot drink anymore. And they don't necessarily go into very deep thinking about who they are, but they just say, okay, I'm getting the message. Life is telling me, knock it off.
You know, David, just like smoking cigarettes, right, which is a huge addiction problem in Canada, there are many people who just quit one day. Like you. There are some more still that, you know, can go to a few meetings like you suggested, and that's it, and they're done. And there are a few that require, you know, very intensive interventions. They need to pack a bag and go off to a treatment center and do that, and varying degrees in between. So, you know, what we need to do is we need to be talking to people who are in recovery and understanding the type of supports that they need in the community, and we need to allow their voices of success to inform the crafting of our community health response to this problem. We need to be listening to their voices.
There's this phrase that became very popular 15 or so years ago. It takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village to wreck a child. And one of the things I think we see in recovery is the active participation of friends and family. So here's the recovered or recovering person in the middle named Bob, but Bob really rarely gets recovered without the involvement and engagement of all these other players in his life.
It's absolutely critical. You know, addiction is a disease that works in systems. It works in relationship systems, it works in family systems, it works in workplace systems. And the people who are around the addict, who are either, you know, enabling or fixing or controlling or arranging or doing whatever, a number of things that they do to make themselves crazy around this addict's behavior, they become very sick too. In fact, at our treatment, we have some pretty good data to suggest that those people who are around the primary addict wind up on disability 3 and 4 times faster than the addict does as well. The health consequences of becoming enmeshed into an addict's problems can be very severe on people. So again, I would say to you and to your viewers, even if you're not the one that has the substance problem, you're still being affected profoundly by this problem.
I think I'm in the wrong business. I think I should be printing T-shirts and selling them that say, I am not a rescuer.
Right.
Stop rescuing people. Okay, now look, let's bring the elephant into the room that's in the room. there are some real obstacles to recovery as an idea, as a movement. Holyrood, the government of Scotland, by mere coincidence when I happened to be there, made a major strategy change. And they said, we have wasted billions of pounds sterling on harm reduction initiatives. Hasn't gained us anything. So we're putting our eggs in the recovery basket.
Right.
Okay, so what is it about other approaches that are sort of stymieing good recovery?
Well, look, that certainly is a very complex conversation. There's a number of things that are missing out of the system, and there's a lot of soul searching that needs to happen in terms of the way that the system is currently attempting to control and address the problem of addiction. What I would like to see is from the top down, right from the federal health minister to the provincial health minister to the mayor to the chief of police, etc. I would like.
What about the city manager?
And the city manager? I would like to see them engaging people in recovery. Where is the mayor's task force on recovery? Where is the groups of people? If I go to a breast cancer rally, God bless them. If I go to a breast cancer rally, and I'm a government official and I get to the podium, you can bet that I'm going to be surrounded by people who have survived breast cancer in pink T-shirts and balloons, and they've done a great job coming forward and engaging. You will not see that with addiction. And I would like to see a day in the not too distant future where we have that, where we have people who have been successful surrounding our leaders.
Let's talk about that little dysfunctional island out on the point called the university, which is having its own problems these days. Year after year, that academic world holds international addictions conferences with all the most famous people in the world. And not once is one recovery person from this community invited. What is it they're talking about exactly?
I rarely get invited, so I don't know.
No, you don't get invited.
But you raise a good point, which of course is research, and there is research that needs to go into the recovery community itself. We need to know more about these 4.5 million Canadians that are in recovery. We need to know how they found recovery, how they maintain their recovery, what are the elements that led to their success. And from that research, we need to design a community health response based on what's worked.
Is it unfair at this point in our history to expect magnificent results?
I think changes are going to come over time. I mean, there are certain groups of people. At Cedars at Cobble Hill, as you know, we are a very comprehensive addiction treatment center. We treat about 50% of our practice is treating safety critical employees. So airline pilots, doctors, nurses, etc., come to Cedars for treatment. We have very, very good outcomes in different cohorts like that because they get proper detox, proper treatment, proper therapy, continuing care and monitoring, sometimes for years after they're out of treatment. And that's really what is required.
But you're not surprised or disappointed or shocked when a given treatment facility of one kind or another says, look, on a good day, our success rate is 25 or 30%. That doesn't depress you or shock you?
Well,
it's less than you might want.
Honestly, the success rate is a bit of a, you're chasing a mystery there.
That's my point.
It's very, very challenging, and one of the challenges that we have, of course, in the addiction field is that we don't have good data because there is such a difference in the way that facilities are operated and the way that we approach. In Surrey right now, for example, this is a major problem. We have a tremendous problem in Surrey with a proliferation of flop houses that are calling themselves recovery houses, of course, that are not. And people are going in there innocently seeking recovery, and they're finding, in a lot of cases, some horrors.
So what do we say? What do you say as an advocate? Because you have been one of the best public advocates for this subject. What do we say to people in Mount Seymour Parkway who are so unhappy that Brenda Plant wants to bring a Turning Point facility for 9 people into the neighborhood. What do we say to them? How do we assure them that this isn't a flop house, that you're not going to have lunatics running around your backyard?
And of course, you're right. I mean, situations like this really taint the pool for everybody. The reality is that people have very little to fear from a well-run recovery house in their neighborhood. These people are clean and sober, which is in stark contrast to many of your neighbors who are drunk and stoned. So, you know, it really isn't a problem having these.
There isn't one of these people right now in this room who's sober, you know.
It really isn't a problem, you know, having these facilities in neighborhoods. They're great neighbors, as long as they are approved facilities and as long as they're run by people who know what they're doing. And therein lies the challenge, is knowing which is which.
We're out of time. There are lots of people in Canada who know what they're doing, yes?
Yes, there are.
Lots of good people. Marshall,
thanks,
you're one of them. Thanks. You're 3 of them. A wonderful conversation with Marshall Smith. Next week, Tracy Porteous, the Executive Director of Ending Violence Association of BC. And Tracy is another great contributor to the community. She's been around for ages. And the week after that, our very first guest ever on this show, Gary Mason, the columnist for the Globe and Mail, returns to talk about a certain event that's coming up in October. Thanks for being with us. Have a good night.